Okay, we are live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Just a quick rules. I would like you to kindly keep your microphones mute. And please, if you have any questions during the discussion, write them in the chat, and then we will address them to the speaker. Thank you, Barbara, for joining us. I am Omar Mohammed, a historian from Mosul, and also working as a special advisor to UNESCO for Revive the Spirit of Mosul. Before we get into the introduction and to also introduce my special guest, Barbara, I would like to give some recent important developments that happened in regard to Revive the Spirit of Mosul. One of them is actually the discovery of the 13th century original prayer hall of the Nouri Mosque. It's also UNESCO announced that the reconstruction of the mosque will start next month. The same with Tahira Church and As-Sa'a Church, as well as our topic of discussion today is the importance of the restoration of the most important element in the social fabric of Mosul, which is the historic houses of the old city of Mosul, and the main and the most visible element in the cultural identity of Mosul, and that is funded completely by the European Union through their cooperation and partnership with the UNESCO. With us today is Barbara Eger. She is the head of cooperation of the EU delegation to Iraq, and she oversees the EU activities in Iraq, and she's been to Mosul several times. She has seen the work herself. The Revive the Spirit of Mosul, and the city of Mosul and Basra, which is funded by the EU, focus on the restoration of the historic houses of the old cities of Mosul and Basra. It doesn't only rebuild the houses, but it also help create jobs, trainings. There have been many people who were trained to work in the reconstruction of historic houses. It was also focusing on the reviving the artisanal profession in Mosul. Many people have been trained, many houses have been reconstructed, and as UNESCO said, they are going to hand over the keys to the people very soon. That means it's not only reopening the houses, but the people will live in their houses again happily with new memories, hopefully. Barbara, with this introduction, one of the elements of the post-war in Mosul was the focus on the humanitarian support. But when we look at Revive the Spirit of Mosul, it goes much more beyond the humanitarian support. It's about the stabilization, not only the present, but all the stabilization of the future. And you have been to Mosul and you have seen yourself those houses. From your own perspective, why it is important for the EU to have this kind of collaboration with the UNESCO?
Thank you very much, Omar. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me and providing me with this opportunity. And in general, for all your important work on Mosul over the past years. I'm very pleased to be here today. Our joint program with UNESCO is a very important initiative for us as EU in Iraq. Just a little bit of context, and somehow also in response to your question, we launched this program and designed this program together with UNESCO back in early 2018, so very shortly after the liberation of Mosul and 2017. And as you said, it's a different approach than the classical humanitarian, which was the order of the day at that time. The idea from the start was that our project would be complementary to the effort of the United Arab Emirates, with their focus on Al Nouri Mosque and the two churches, and that we would be focusing in a more comprehensive approach on the heritage houses in the old city, but, and very importantly, putting in the additional focus on skills development and on employing young Mosulawis in the reconstruction of their own city. And linked to that also a strong focus on cultural activities. So our approach is very much about reviving the city as such, beyond the heritage houses, to really infuse it with life, provide the young population of Mosul with an opportunity to learn the skills, but also to put them straight at use within the same reconstruction efforts of their own houses, of their own old city. And so this is also why we're so proud of this effort, which is now and over the past year has really taken shape, and where we start to see very impressive results. It's this link between providing the young generation with the skills, providing them with job opportunities in the reconstruction of their old heritage, with its immense cultural value for the city, for the population, and then at the same time also relaunching the cultural life of the city again. So it's really very much an effort about linking the past to the present and valorizing heritage for its value for the society of Mosul, for the community of Mosul, and for the future.
Thank you, Barbara, for this introduction. I have spoken to many people who owns these historic houses. When I speak to them, I ask them the questions about how do they feel about having their historic houses back to life again, and not only being restored, but there's something deep in the value of these houses, is the how proud they are that they have seen their houses are essential elements in the restoration of Mosul, in the restoration of the spirit of Mosul. Therefore, it is not only restoring the physical space, but it is restoring the value itself. This approach of the EU in working closely with UNESCO, in what sense do you think this kind of restoration will help in the stabilization of Mosul, in the also in supporting the economic value of this part of the city?
Thank you very much. Well, what you're describing in terms of this pride is exactly what I felt. I'd just been in Mosul in mid-December, and it was incredibly impressive to talk to the architect working on the chief architect coordinating the work in Mosul, being from Mosul, and just looking at, like, seeing the sparkles in his eyes when he talks about how he is contributing to the work, talking to the individual workers, to the alabaster carving colleagues, to the ones installing the electricity wires, and everyone. It was really across the board that we saw this pride, and this pride about seeing their old city re-emerging, and the pride at the same time of being personally involved in these efforts. So this was very rewarding for us, but I think it must be an even stronger feeling for Mosulawis themselves. And I also vividly recall one of these scenes where we met a few of the owners who were literally there every day to oversee the work on their houses, eagerly waiting for the keys to be handed over to them in the coming months, and watching the progress. So as you say, I think it's really about, there is this strong pride for it, and I think it's also long due that the population of the old city actually sees progress, tangible progress. And so I'm extremely happy that UNESCO is expecting all of the work on the houses to be finished by the end of this year, even on the bigger palatial houses. And I think with that, together with the infrastructure that is done on the lightening of the old city and the pathways, I think it will really be the start of a new era for Mosul after the past and after the reconstruction. When it comes to stabilization and the economics of the city of Mosul, I think we're all best aware of the general economic challenges that Iraq is facing when it comes to the youth and to the need to create jobs. I think with this project, we're delivering a small contribution in the sense that I understand that to date, about more than 1,500 people have been employed in this reconstruction efforts. And at the same time, almost 2,000 young people are involved in the TVET programs, and another 2,000 in on-the-jobs training. So I think it also provides many young people with the opportunities to use these skills in other reconstruction projects, and we're actively making a link with other UN agencies, but also with the authorities and with private sector firms to make sure that these young people will be provided with opportunities in other projects. And there's a lot of reconstruction that still needs to take place in Mosul. Generally speaking, I believe that when there are economic opportunities, we advance social economic stabilization, which is equally important. And I think through all the community involvement efforts that this project is undertaking, and where you are a vital pillar, I think we're really advancing this idea of bringing together people on a joint purpose, a joint objective, and thereby creating a joint pathway for cohesion and for stabilization of the city.
This is amazing to hear, Barbara. On the TVET program, and I have been following closely the training program. I am interested generally in the program itself, but there is something that I always take pride of how successful this project is that personally, and also as someone from Mosul, it is the first time for me to see women being receiving or getting training in professions that have been, let's say, preserved for men for centuries, which is working on the inscriptions, working on the marble, working on very specific type of restoration and preservation of houses. This is one of the most important outcomes. How will the EU delegation in Iraq build on this to use this as an example that working on cultural reconstruction is not only actually generating as I said again, physical reconstruction. It is restoring other parts of the spirit of the city. Women now are an essential part of this reconstruction.
Thank you, Ma. Well, I mean, obviously for us, women empowerment is really at the front of our endeavors in Iraq. And it is really one of our core interests. And we put in a lot of attention on how to do this. As you say, a large part of it is through technical vocational education and training in Mosul, but across many other domains across the country. Because when looking at the labor market situation of Iraq, we see that there is much to be done for women. And we try to bring them in a very careful and sensitive way, but really opening also their minds to the fact that just because you're a woman, you can very well work on alabaster carving, on woodworks in Basra, or on IT skills in Baghdad. So it's really, really opening the mind to opportunities, which there are, and then mentoring and carefully accompanying them to make sure that they actually also, beyond the skills part, receive the opportunities to engage in the sectors afterwards. For Mosul, I'm extremely proud, as you are, to see the female engineers, the female architects, the female alabaster and marble workers, the female electricians. So really working on the project. At the same time, the project also has, as of late, also a component on creative industries, where we're supporting small businesses in cultural and creative industries. And there again, we see a lot of female entrepreneurs willing to take up the challenge, establish their own business when it comes to soap production, when it comes to sculptures out of marble and alabaster, when it comes to leather goods. So I think there is a lot of interest of women, and when provided with the opportunities, I think we can get a lot done.
Thank you. This leads me to a question that I've been asking myself many times. Is this a project that EU is supporting beside many other projects? Is this going to lead to a kind of permanent presence of the EU in Mosul?
I wish. Actually, I mean, as you're best aware, we are firmly established here in Baghdad, and as a European institution, we're always focusing in our dealings on the central authorities, while working at the same time in the south, in the north, all across of Iraq. We will certainly be more present and come more often to Mosul. And at the same time, also continue our strong support to Nineveh Governorate in general, and to the same extent in the south as well. So we have been, ever since 2018, really making sure that while we continue to provide support to the north and specifically the liberated areas, we also carefully take into account and support initiatives that aim at addressing the problems across the whole territory, and in particular in the south. But from Baghdad out, while traveling.
Yeah, it's as someone who always wants to see this kind of reopening of embassies, not embassies, I mean consulates in Mosul. That's the reason I asked the question. But there is another question that comes to mind, Barbara, is what are the lessons the EU is learning from this initiative in Mosul?
I think the lessons are at several levels. This initiative was one of our first ones where we combined several actors in one program. So it's not only UNESCO, but there's also a big contribution from UN Habitat when it comes to the urban planning part, to the development of the spatial plans, of the housing plans, of the reconstruction plan, when it comes to ensuring that it's actually decent work. So there's a lot of work going on with ILO as well. When it comes to the supporting businesses, we're working with the IRM Enterprise Development Fund. So one of the lessons learned is really about making sure to find the best partners that are technically capable and passionate, and then bring them together around one table, around a joint effort. Another important lesson for us in this program is also sort of taking a more programmatic approach. So not just working specifically on the technical reconstruction, but really doing a whole, almost like a value chain, from the skills to the jobs, to the reconstruction, to the creative and cultural activities. So we have been, based on this Mosul experience of bringing together actors and really doing larger programs that have a bigger vision, we've developed a similar approach with a number of partners in the agricultural sector. Again, they're spanning the whole profile from TVAT, skills, supporting businesses with microfinance, working on smallholders, working on the market-based approaches. So I think this is a very good lesson learned for us, because whenever you have an intervention, unless you really work on all elements, the success will be limited. And I think with Mosul, we're now seeing it, that it's really leading to success.
Thank you. The cultural heritage is growing around the world, not only in Mosul, and it's actually giving us very important lessons on the importance of this kind of cultural communication, either in reconstruction of cities in post-war, or even the preservation. The cultural heritage diplomacy is becoming one of the important elements. And in this regard, would the EU be willing to enlarge and extend its own projects based on the successful project that has been implemented in Mosul? Are there any future projects that can be implemented in the city of Mosul in the phase that we can say that it's no more a humanitarian need, but it's rather a more development and a growing sector, such as the cultural reconstruction, cultural preservation, and even more after the end of the project of Revive the Spirit of Mosul? Are there any future plans for Mosul or Iraq in general?
Thank you, Ma. Cultural heritage is obviously very important for us, and as European Union, we just end of last year launched our strategy for heritage preservation in crisis and conflict settings. But and to some extent, Iraq has been a precursor on this. So in addition to the project in Mosul, we also have a big project for the rehabilitation of the Basra old city. We are the ones supporting the reconstruction of the Erbil citadel. We're working on the Zoroastrian temples in Dohuk. And in addition to all of that, we have several university exchange programs between Iraqi universities and European universities to support the faculties dealing with archaeology, heritage valorization. So it's really, Mosul is part of a larger package and a larger approach. We'll certainly remain engaged in that field. But I think we're also carefully looking into the trajectory of Iraq, taking into account that ultimately Iraq is an upper middle income country, and certain types of support and investment will in the future also need to be accompanied by a stronger buy-in from the Iraqi authorities and them taking over part of the responsibilities.
Thank you. I would like to receive questions from the audience now. Maha, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's always very inspiring to listening to you, Barbara. So thank you very much for your insight. You touch base on really very important issues, job creation, decent work, short-term employment to longer term. It's really the spirit of such a program, because indeed, the program, as mentioned, helping to provide restorations, preservations, but at the same time, in a city like Mosul, where the unemployment rate is very high, it helps to also give economic opportunities. But we need really to make sure that those opportunities are decent work, because in some cases, and here I'm going back to women, for some women, it might be their first interaction with the labor market. So it's really important to give good opportunities so they can retain in the labor market. So, and such programs can help to do this experience. So I'm very happy that you mentioned that. I have only one question, because you mentioned the work with women in different sectors. What do you think? I know it's not easy, but and as ILO, we worked in different parts of the world on this, which is women community contractors. So training women to be a community contractors, and they can then get small contracts as part of the construction programs to implement. And usually, they do this also with other women. So I'm not sure if this, and here, of course, my question is to you and also to Omar, if you see that there is really room and space to have such program for women in Mosul, and then we can, if we see that it's really successful, so it can be expanded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maha. Barbara, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you very much, Maha. It's certainly a very interesting idea. We've been working on community constructors approaches with UN Habitat in our program in Basra that is focusing more on informal settlements. But really applying that concept also to women specifically is certainly a very good idea. And I'm sure we'll be most happy to look into that and work with you to see whether this could be a further extension to the Mosul project or some of our other interventions, wherever it's best fit. But I certainly fully agree with you that it's really about the decent works, about this transition as part of the transition from humanitarian to development, that we move on from cash for works to decent work for Iraqis, respecting labor standards, and with that also the labor conventions that Iraq has signed, and also do justice to the Decent Work Country program of Iraq.
I would also like to add that there are many rising female-led entrepreneurships in Mosul. It is something really interesting to look at. There are many women are leading business in the city, and they were all empowered also and inspired by the work on cultural heritage in Mosul. That's why the Revive the Spirit of Mosul is not only inspiring the reconstruction itself, but it's creating more opportunities for specifically women to find this job as a suitable and important opportunity for them. Mr. Faris, yes, you may ask your question, please.
Thanks very much, Omar. Thanks for Barbara. Really, I am very, very happy for what you say, for your attention to the smallest details, especially about women, about people, beneficiaries, workers in this project. Really, I'm following this project, and I know everything about this. Frankly, it's a very amazing project and has a great impact on the preserving the historical and heritage identity of the Mosul. As Maha said, and all, I think you will ask that. The question is, can the project be implemented in another border in Mosul, especially maybe in Qaliat or something like that? This will give a chance for women and to give a good percentage for them to be within the main step of the works. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Faris, for your very kind words. It's great to hear how, to what an extent you also like what we're trying to do. When it comes to the extension of this project to other areas, I think we're very conscious about the fact that with this project, we will only be covering roughly 1/3, 1/4 of all the heritage houses that will need to be reconstructed in Mosul. But at the same time, it's the heritage character of the old city in Mosul is very varied, and not all houses would need an intervention by UNESCO. And I think in our discussions with UN Habitat, but also UNESCO, it's always been clear, as well as with the SPA, that there is also a role for the private owners of these houses. So in order to sustain and support them, and many of which are interested in rebuilding and starting the reconstruction of their own houses, we've set up a sort of counseling house that provides these house owners with all the advice that they need for the planning and supports them in all the processes. So there are limitations to what we can do as European Union. We're very much engaged, but we have not the ambition to fully complete the reconstruction of the entire old city of Mosul. But we really need to ensure that the local authorities and the federal authorities come in and do their part of the work and take over part of the responsibility for this effort. Because ultimately, we're in an upper middle income country, and the oil revenue of Iraq is quite impressive compared to any other country in the world. So I think we also collectively have to work with the authorities and ensure that they're understanding that it's also their responsibility to come in.
Thank you, Barbara. I would like also to add something very important, and it's part of the recent development in Mosul, is that Revive the Spirit of Mosul is in fact attracting tourists to come to the city of Mosul. Many people have contacted me saying that they would like to go and do a visit to those historic houses or the historic sites. That is another also important development as myself, as a Maslawi first, but also as an observer of the reconstruction of the city. It is very important to look at how this work is creating a space of communication between too many different elements. And for those who might not be familiar with the structure or the fabric of the houses of Mosul in the old city, they are an essential part of the commercial area itself. Therefore, the reconstruction is not only for an inhabited area or residential area, it's an essential part of the commercial area of Mosul. And Mosul has always been a commercial city living on this kind of direction of life, and it will enhance hopefully its social fabric again. I have not related to Mosul the question, but it's related to the initiative itself. Barbara, it is from Mr. Al-Sudani. I don't know if you would like to answer this question. It is about your evaluation of your recent visit to Basra and the vocational training center in the city.
Of course, I'd love to answer this question because I just effectively returned the other day from Basra. So for those who don't know, as part of this initiative, it's a double initiative where we're working on the old city of Mosul, but also the old city of Basra. So the Shanakshil houses, so the old Ottoman houses. And in Basra as well, we're working very closely with the DOLSA, so Ministry of Labor, TVET school, TVET centers. And it was very impressive to see the carpentry workshops and the electricity workshops and the young people working there, and see how they are now doing the training so that when the works on the houses will actually start, they're fully equipped with the skills necessary to come in on that side. So I do in particularly recall, for instance, 2 female electricians that were undergoing there the training. And it was very impressive to see because both of them are actually graduates from the Southern Technical University of Basra, and who came into that course to learn the more hands-on technical skills so that they can really complement their engineering skill set with the practical side and increase their capacity to find a job. So it was a very positive experience, and I think there's a lot of potential in the construction sector in general in Iraq, as the studies of IMF and World Bank and others suggest. It's potentially the biggest economic sector, together with tourism, construction, and agriculture. I think the main part and the most tricky question on that side is always, how do we ensure that it is Iraqis working on the construction sites, on the building sites, in order to create the jobs for Iraqis rather than relying on imported labor in that sense.
In the same direction, Barbara, there is a very important element also in this rehabilitation of the historic city, either in Mosul or in Basra, and it's related to the cultural heritage in general. There has been, as you know, it's the trauma of the population after the war. What is the place of working and dealing with this trauma within the EU project in Revive the Spirit of Mosul as well?
Effectively, in Mosul, we started a very nice collaboration also with the station, the co-working space, business incubator program that started in Baghdad, and through our work with Expertise France, we actually opened the outpost in Mosul, where now also UNESCO is working, and there is a gallery space there. But in that gallery space, we're also doing a lot of art therapy courses to address exactly the traumas that you were referring to, and generally, I believe art can play a very important role, and has been shown in many conflict settings, how allowing individuals to express their traumas and to work with them through creative means can really play an important role in overcoming them, but also to find back the trust and the beliefs in themselves and in the future, and reconnect the present and the past. So we're taking it from that side. And then, of course, we have other programs, which are more on the classical psychosocial support programs, where we're working with several psychiatric clinics and mental health hospitals across Nineveh, and especially the Hook government.
Thank you. On another topic is when we were speaking about expanding the activities of the EU, and you mentioned that it's also important to have the Iraqi government and the Iraq side to be more involved in this. I have been many times asked, specifically by the governor of Nineveh, Mr. Najm al-Jabouri, on what are the best ways to have a stable communication with the EU. What should the Iraqi government, the local government of Mosul, do in order to support the work of EU and UNESCO?
So we do actually.
What is expected from their side?
So the way we normally, obviously we engage with governors on an ad hoc basis. We come and visit them, but there is also a formal and more structured way that we have, especially for this project. So there is, on the one hand, the technical committees, where, of course, the SBAC, the governorate, the municipality, and the community are all involved. And then we have twice a year also the formal steering committee, which is more the high-level forum to engage, discuss the progress, discuss the challenges. So there are several ways, but in any case, we're in very close contact with the governor, with the mayor, with the SBAC, with the Ministry of Culture. And I think it's also somehow the recipe of success and the lesson learned, what you asked before, is maintaining this close engagement, which in this case was particularly critical because, of course, given the heritage status of these houses, it really needed the agreement from all parts. Those responsible for heritage preservation in Iraq, those responsible for the communities, from the municipalities, the owners, and which in cases of some of these houses were all very complex negotiations. But I think it is also thanks to your involvement and to the strong engagement of UNESCO on the ground, and with long lists of stakeholders in the city, in the governorate, in Baghdad, that we managed to obtain all of these permits and agreements.
I believe this is an important also lesson, that many stakeholders are involved and they are working collectively on this. Mr. Bilal, please.
Thank you very much. Bilal from UNESCO Office Baghdad. I'm working as a project officer under Reviving Mosul and Basra Old Cities project, and simply leading the component related to TIVIT under the project, with being responsible to provide the skills to the young vulnerable youth in Mosul and Basra. Sorry for being late to join. Just arrived from Basra as well after a long week there, with colleagues from EU as well. Talking about the point raised by Maha, and I really catch the last part of it, but the women engagement. But before that, let me link it with your question about responsibilities of the local authorities, and mainly the governor office, with the huge responsibilities they have now with the decentralization, as the DOLSA department now fully under the authority of the governorate there. So here, when numbers talks, let me say that under the database of MOLSA, there are 230,000 people registered in the database of MOLSA from Mosul or from Nainawa in general as unemployed people and job seekers. And here it's putting a huge responsibility on the shoulder of the DOLSA department under the governor office there to provide the related skills to enable these people to engage the labor market in many sectors. You mentioned the agriculture, you mentioned the tourism sector. Let me add the agriculture and other sectors where is really a huge demand there. UNESCO managed within this project to conduct a labor market survey in construction field or in construction sector, where the numbers showing clearly the large number where is a huge demand for workers in different levels to be part of the reconstruction of the city with the companies or the labor market who are working in Mosul. Talking about the numbers, which will feed and giving good answer and direction for our colleague Maha from ILO, and I'll be happy to share more details with the database. As of today, UNESCO managed to train 184 women under the vocational training center in Mosul in many trades under construction sector, and 51 of these graduates entered or engaged in the real work in the houses in the old city. I'm talking about the 75 houses where the work is going now, and the 43 houses where the work done already there. The empowerment of these women really enabled them to open a new gates of opportunities and finding job. And let me end this introduction from my side with really mentioning that there was many success stories in both Mosul and Basra, and mainly in Mosul, with the real motivation that we saw and encouragement from the youth there, with the habit of the need of the being part of rebuild their city, and the spirit of Mosul as well. As a summary of that, UNESCO planning to prepare a booklet with 100 success stories out of 1,550 trainees where we managed to reach. So these success stories will reflect the real impact of these great modules, where really here I advise the governor office and the local authorities to follow the module. Barbara talked about the expand of this module by many other parties, because UNESCO will not be able to rebuild the whole city. But the module being provided within this project, and the Nouri Mosque project as well, it's really giving a great experience where the local authorities and the government of Iraq can follow to really set the sustainability in the place, to make sure that it will be not only the intervention with these projects, but it will be part of the sustainability of the development of the city itself. Thank you very much, and great to join you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bilal. Barbara, would you like to respond?
No, I think Bilal said it all. It's great to have so many positive advocates.
Well, I would like to conclude with some small questions. Barbara, I have too many questions, but I would like to conclude with this question. We all know that the progress of the Revive the Spirit of Mosul will continue, and the houses will be rebuilt. Hopefully, the historic sites also will be completed and rebuilt. As you say, there are many ongoing projects in Iraq supported by the EU and in collaboration with also the UNESCO, which makes all of this collaboration very important also for the future of the city. But when we look at the future of specifically the jobs that have been created, when there will be no need to reconstruct a historic house because they will be finished and handed over, Are there any plans for maintaining these kind of projects and moving even after the level of development? We said the humanitarian level, and then the development, something beyond the development itself. How do you envision this? How do you think the EU rule in Iraq should continue in this regard, especially that culture has proved to be a very important element in the post-war stability, but also enhancing the lives of the young generation? There are many young people in Iraq who are seeking jobs, who are seeking opportunities. Some of them are relying on the governmental jobs, but the market is becoming even much bigger. However, that requires a more kind of like a long-term plan. Is there a long-term plan in the mind of the EU delegation in Iraq?
Thank you, Ma, for this tricky question at the end. So overall, on the side of the EU, we've just prepared with our colleagues in Brussels our new 7-year strategy for our engagement on the cooperation side with Iraq. So we're pleased to stay till 2027 for sure, and continue engaging really on the development side with a specific focus, among others, on job creation. So this will be certainly continue to be a strong focus area for us, together with education. So really having the side of the human capital with the active engagement for jobs through private sector development, through employment intensive public sector works, through supporting the agriculture sector. And I believe cultural and creative industries certainly have a very important employment potential in Iraq. As you mentioned before, Omar, Iraq has a big tourism potential, which in the hospitality sector in general, together with the creative industries, is certainly a very green economic sector compared to the currently predominant oil industry. So there is a lot of room for engagement for us as European Union, but all of that, we're phasing more into how one does development cooperation in upper middle income country. So really with a focus on supporting civil society and the government authorities within their capacities to assume their roles in a society.
Yeah.
So on the government side, to deliver to the needs of the population, and the civil society in its accountability function.
Yeah, and final question I received by email is about the challenge of the climate change in Iraq, and also its connection to the restoration of the cities in Mosul. The climate change is becoming a concern, especially in Iraq, but there are windows and opportunities to also have the concept of green heritage, or introducing more the green heritage and the green energy in Iraq as an opportunity of collaboration between UNESCO and the EU.
No, certainly fully agree. I mean, as some of you might know, green recovery and climate change are the big priorities of the European Commission under Ursula von der Leyen. So it will certainly be an area for our strong engagement. We very much appreciated the commitment shown by Iraq at the latest COP.
I think we have lost connection from Barbara. Internet connection is also one of the challenges in the future. I think we
can count on Tesla to sort this issue.
I hope she can rejoin.
We think that only in Mosul this happens, dear Omar.
No, it happens everywhere.
Barbara in Baghdad, actually, yeah, she's still in Iraq. So this is the point.
So I apologize for this. We will have to conclude. Thank you all for attending. And on her note on the tourism, I invite you to visit Mosul. It is a place worth visiting. You will witness yourself the recovery and the reconstruction of the city, like a city rising from the ashes. Thank you so much for attending. And we would, yeah, she's back. We will give her the last word to say.
Hi, my apologies. Our computers
It's completely
froze.
okay.
Our internet is gone. So back on the phone.
Yeah, I was about to conclude, Barbara, but I will leave it to you with your final remarks, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Omar, for this opportunity. I think with the progress that we've seen, particularly over the past year with UNESCO, but also with the other partners, UN Habitat, ILO, IOM on this project, ICROM, Action for Hope, just to name a few of the many involved, we're extremely proud as EU of this effort and what we're seeing, and especially the feedback we're getting from all the individuals taking part in this initiative, be it as those receiving the skills training, be it as those working on the sites, being part of the music ensembles that have been put together, being it the artists that are part of the exhibitions at the station. It's just very encouraging, and I think we're starting to do justice to the name of this initiative, which is reviving the spirit of Mosul. So I can now really finally see how this is actually happening, and it's very encouraging. And our big hope is really that we find an agreement with the authorities, national and local, how to take this forward, and especially also how to take forward the strong engagement of the local communities.
Thank you, Barbara. And as a gesture, if EU will ever think of opening a permanent representation in Mosul, I'm happy to donate my house in Old Mosul.
Thank you very much, Omar. I would be the first one to come.
Thank you so much, and many thanks to all the attendees. Thank you. We hope to see you again in another meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.